What's up, everyone? What's up? We are going to get started. Today is another episode of our exciting podcast. I'm pumped today because today is the 12th episode that I've done. Today is the 12th episode. So when I first started this process, actually, what was really interesting about it is that I wanted to do this, but then I didn't want to do it. And I resisted for about a year or so. And I have mentors, I have coaches. Jeremy Anderson is one of my coaches. And he gave me the confidence, as well as another friend of mine, Dr. Eve. You guys that are in the first generation space might know Dr. Eve. I think she's had her podcast for maybe about 5 years now. And just listening to them and being encouraged by them, here we are at episode number 12, and I am just happy to be here. And so for those of you that don't know me, and don't know this podcast, this is Student Access 101, where we discuss critical conversations in pursuit of equitable education for those students that are underrepresented. And I am your host. For those of you that don't know me, I am an educator, I'm a researcher, I'm an empowerment speaker, and I'm a lover of all things educational growth and advancement. And in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month. Hispanic Heritage Month, for those of you that don't know, it begins on September 15th and goes until October 15th. And so in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, I thought that it was really important that we pay homage to our Hispanic and Latino students, and that we get a chance to really give them a space to talk and to express some of the needs that other Hispanic and Latino students have. And so also today is World Peace Day. World Peace Day on September 21st. And what's beautiful about that is that it gives everyone an opportunity to just reflect and just be mindful of how important peace is to our lives. And I wish you all nothing but peace and love, mind, body, and spirit. I try to live my life in peace and joy on an everyday basis. And so I wish you all peace. So I am excited about my guest today. My guest today means so much to me, and I'm going to try my best not to bawl during this episode because I've known this young person since she was about maybe 15. I was teaching a fashion class for the Summer Institute at Upward Bound at Kent State University, and she took my fashion class. She liked it so much that she came back a second summer and took the fashion class again. And I've just been overjoyed, being able to see her grow. And I'm going to, give her well-to-dos in her introduction, but it's just amazing as an educator to have the opportunity to see your students do amazing things. There's nothing to describe it. I mean, every time I think about how proud I am of my students, it just brings me to tears. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to bring her in. Welcome, Ilianna Velez, fellow Kent Stater. Make sure that you unmute yourself, sweetie.
Yes. Hello. Oh my goodness. You were saying you weren't going to cry. And I'm like, as you're speaking, I'm like, let me get it together. So I'm not crying.
I know. It's so good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to be here, excited to chat with you. It was amazing. And I'm going to try to hold back the tears too. So,
but sometimes we just got to let it go. But, with me, I as a host, I can't lose it, but I gotta, I'll be real with my tears. I know that, it's just so wonderful to get a chance to connect with you, to see how much you've grown over the years. And, I just remember the first time I met you, in my sewing class. So, yeah.
And that class just had it just made such a huge impact on me. That was probably one of my favorite experiences in Upward Bound in the summer program. And it's something that has never left me. It's been a huge part of my growth and everything. So thank you so much. Like I said, I was having a conversation with my sister earlier today about this podcast and being able to speak with you specifically. And it just was bringing up so many memories. And so it just is, it's great to be here. And I'm thankful that you invited me to chat with you today.
Absolutely. And I want to mention and thank you in public for agreeing to be on the board. So Ilianna is one of the board members for the Ellington Foundation. So the Ellington Foundation is my nonprofit, and I use that as a way to raise money for students that are first generation students of color. And so I've given several scholarships, and now I'm making the thing official, and I have board members now, and we're going to be doing some real fundraising now. So it's just an honor to also be able to work with you in that way.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. I believe in you. I believe in everything you do, so I'm here for it all.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart. Thank you. All right, I'm going to read your bio so everybody knows about all the amazing contributions you're making to the lives of our students. So Ilianna Velez is from Lorain, Ohio, and is a proud first-generation, two-time college graduate of Kent State University. She earned her Bachelor's of Arts and Communication Studies in 2016 and her Master's of Education in Higher Ed Administration and Student Personnel in 2019. As I was reading this, I was like, I wonder if there's a PhD brewing someplace.
Maybe.
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 Yes. And so Ilianna serves as Assistant Director for the Student Multicultural Center, or the SMC, at Kent State University. In this role, she assists with supervision, with staff supervision. She oversees SMC training and education initiatives. She leads intentional engagement of students from their sophomore year through graduation and leads their marketing and assessment efforts. Prior to arriving at Kent State University, Ilianna served as Associate Director of Multicultural Resource Center at Oberlin College and Conservatory, where she led initiatives that promoted cross-cultural understanding and collaborated with campus and community partners to identify and implement a range of activities and educational opportunities that positively impacted retention and matriculation for students who are underrepresented. And just recently, didn't this just happen just recently where you were named one of the 100 plus Latinos in Cleveland to know?
Yes. That was made official. What was it? Yesterday or Monday or something.
Yeah. I saw your post on LinkedIn. Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so Ilianna has a passion for justice and equity and advancement of communities of color and first generation individuals, especially within higher education. Ilianna is also passionate about all things fitness and earned her personal trainer certificate in 2020 from the National Academy of Sports Medicine. She enjoys working out, spending time with her family and friends, and playing with her dog, Bee.
Yes.
Oh, welcome to Student Access 101.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. And so we're going to go ahead and get started with some of the questions. And I just want people to get a chance to know you just a little bit more. So can you talk a little bit about where you grew up, how you grew up?
Yeah. So as mentioned in my bio, I grew up in Lorain, Ohio. So if you're not familiar with Lorain, it's kind of outside the Cleveland area, but it's a pretty diverse place as well. So I don't know if you know, but it's also known as the International City. So
is it?
Yeah. So they host an international festival every single year, and it's a really big thing within Lorain. There's a lot of different nationalities that are represented in Lorain. So I grew up around a lot of diversity. That wasn't new to me. You know, it was common to go to the grocery store and, hear people speaking Spanish or hear people speaking a different language, seeing other people that looked like me, in many different spaces, especially within like a classroom setting as well. So I grew up around that, and I know that not many people do. So it's a privilege to be able to be around so much diversity.
Yeah.
So I think that has definitely shaped me, the person that I am today, but also just how I navigate through life. But also, I don't know if you know this part, but I used to live in Puerto Rico as well. So
Did you?
yeah, so I wasn't born in Puerto Rico. I was born in Lorraine, but moved to Puerto Rico, I think when I was like 1 or 2 years old. So I was real young.
Uh-huh.
And I lived there up until 2002, where
Did you?
we moved back to Ohio then. So I was just turning like 8 years old at the time when
So
we moved.
you had like some of your like really like important like
Yeah,
years in Puerto Rico.
definitely.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
it's a unique experience, because I hear, my friends talk about their upbringing, their childhood years, and like mine was totally different.
Yeah.
So that is it's an extremely important part to who I am. And
Yeah.
I oftentimes reflect back on those times because it's a big part of my identity as well. And being able to experience Puerto Rico, and I am Puerto Rican, so being
Yes.
able to immerse myself in some of those like traditions, those cultural traditions, like I had those experiences firsthand. And
Yeah.
then, moving to Ohio, a lot of those things kind of faded because some of the things that we did in Puerto Rico were celebrated as a whole, as an island as a whole, right? And when you come to Ohio and nobody else is really celebrating things just kind of die down, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something that I would like to tap back into, because again, it was so important in my childhood years, and I definitely don't want that to be lost in anything. But yeah, those were moments that really shaped me into who I am. So being in Puerto Rico and being from Lorraine in such a diverse place. I also, as you mentioned, I am a first generation college graduate. So I'm the first in my family to go to college and graduate from college. But my parents were really, really hard workers. My family in general as a whole are really hard workers. So that has always been instilled in me.
Yeah.
But I'd say that even with being first gen, I know sometimes in certain first gen households, families or parents, they tend to drill college into their child. My parents didn't do that. I think my parents really supported any direction that I wanted to go in. And because I seen that they worked so hard, I just knew that like if I worked hard, then I am going to be all right in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I never really set any big dreams or goals for myself. Because I didn't really know what was possible for me, and I didn't really have mentors and stuff at the time to really show me what it was that was possible for me. So I was just kind of going through life. I was always pretty good at school, and I loved like getting good grades and then coming home and my parents, telling me good job. So like that was
Yeah.
enough for me to keep going. But with that, I never really knew what was next for me. So when high school came around and people are talking about what's next, there wasn't a lot of talk about like people going to college and what was next. It was really just like, where are you going to work after this? Like, what are you going to do?
Right.
So it wasn't until one of my friends in high school had mentioned the Upward Bound program to me, where I became familiar with Upward Bound. And I also grew up in a really strict household. So my parents are very strict. So for me, anything that could get me out of the house was like,
Yes, let's do it.
I'm like, I participated in all types of after school activities. Yeah, I'll just say that. Like to get me out of the house, I was like, yep, I'm doing it. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
So, she was explaining like, oh, you get to stay after school certain days and they have all these fun workshops, but also you can go to like a college campus sometimes on the weekends, and you get to stay a whole summer on a college campus. And I was like, what? Like, this sounds amazing. I can be away from home for a whole summer. Like, that sounds perfect, and like all expenses paid for. Like, are you sure this is the thing? It just sounded like a whole new world for me. I didn't even know that things like that existed. So she connected me with some folks to kind of get me through the process. And me and my sister actually at the time had done it together. So it was a really fun experience to be able to do that with her as well.
Yeah.
But that was my first exposure to college even being a thing for me, to be honest.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that I was thinking about, or even anything that, like I said, my parents were forcing me to do. They would have supported me in any direction I think that I would have went. So
Yeah, yeah. That was going to be my next question, was how Upward Bound has impacted your life. And still, I think once you are like indoctrinated into the UB family, like you're always a part of UB,
for sure.
as in just like you said, my family wasn't huge on education. I'm first gen as well. And so Upper Bound was also my first opportunity to go to a college campus. So I definitely, see the correlation and how much impact it's had on your life and my life and the lives of thousands of
Mhm.
other students. So
For sure.
yeah,
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 no, Upward Bounds. If it wasn't for Upward Bound, I don't even think that I would be here in the position that I am today, because like I said,
yeah.
I wasn't really thinking about college. I was thinking that I was probably going to go straight into the workforce. And at the time as well, I was speaking to recruiters for like National Guard and stuff to see if like I wanted to be in the Air Force. So I
Yeah.
have a titi, my titi, she retired from the Air Force. So she's very, she's very successful in life. So that was a person that I could say that I looked up to and was like,
Mhm.
well, if I went that path, then I will probably end up being successful just like my titi.
Yeah.
So that was an option for me as well. But Upward Bound really opened my eyes to the college experience, and
Mm.
really paved the way for me as well. Like and kind of held my hand through the process a bit too,
Yeah.
because it was a whole new world for me
Yeah.
and my family. And I, yeah, I don't think that I would be in the position that I am in today if it wasn't for them. They
Yeah.
believe that Upward Bound like covered the cost of even applying to college as well,
Yeah.
which would have been a significant barrier
Yeah.
in my family at the time, because the cost
Yeah.
of just applying to college can get
Yeah.
very expensive. So even the workshops that they were doing, they were so intentional, right? To get us thinking about what it is that we wanted to do with our lives post
Yeah.
school. And I specifically remember an after school workshop where one of the activities was for us to go online and Google jobs that we were interested in doing, and like writing this report essentially on what that job is, and like looking into the overall details of it to just become familiar with it. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So
Mm.
what I did, I knew for sure that I just didn't want to be living in poverty anymore. Like
Yes.
like what job is going to pay me a lot of money? Because that's what I do. So
Yeah.
I Googled like the highest paying job, and anesthesiologist popped up, and I was like, bingo, that's what I'm gonna do. That's what I wrote my report on. And then when I started applying to colleges, I automatically assumed like I want to be an anesthesiologist, this is what I want to do. So I was going on like a pre-med track, and
Yeah.
quickly found out once I got to college that that wasn't what I wanted to do. I graduated as a comm major, communication
Yeah.
major, but nonetheless, it had us doing workshops that got us thinking intentionally about those things where I
Yeah.
never really spent time thinking about them in the past, because like I said, it was just one of those things where I knew I was a hard worker, and whatever I ended up doing, I was going to work hard and I was going to succeed at it. Like I was confident in my ability to do just that. But
Yeah.
anything beyond that, I never really put too much thought into. So
Mhm.
Upward Bound changed that for me, and the people that worked within Upward Bound just poured so much into me. I don't even know that they realize.
Yeah. Yeah.
They poured so much into me and believed in me and helped me through the process, where I just wouldn't have known a single thing. They
Yeah.
helped me get through that, and it's
Yeah.
been life changing for me.
Absolutely. Wow. As a Latina, what are some of the challenges that you faced in higher ed as a student and now as a professional?
Yeah, I think as a student, I'd say, for one, a lack of resources that were available to me. Um, I think that, well, just to be clear, finances are extremely important. And you know what I
Oh,
mean? It's
yeah.
a huge barrier for Latinos in general, but especially for me at the time as well. So there wasn't ever a semester where I was questioning, like, how I was going to pay my bill for the semester ahead, you know?
Right.
And it was always, always, always such a struggle to find funding, you know?
Yeah.
And I felt like I was like being sent to this person or sent to this person,
Mm.
having to do like research on my own. And it just seemed like nobody really had a clear-cut answer. But also,
Yeah.
like, when you're sending me these resources, I don't even know how to navigate these resources. So like it would have been nice to like have somebody maybe sit down with me and get to know me a little bit more, to maybe see what it was that I could have qualified for, to then be able to help me search for these things specifically. And then I know exactly what I'm applying to. You know, it just, the whole process was just so intimidating and so stressful for me. And so resources, as it pertains to access to financial aid and things like that, was extremely difficult for me to navigate as a student. It just always seemed like such a hurdle. And then I'd say the next thing was, and this is probably obvious as well, but just an overall lack of representation of Hispanic Latinx identifying students on campus, but also staff and faculty. It's extremely important to be able to see us represented on a campus, but also within, you know, staff and faculty as well, because it fosters that sense of belonging for us as students. And so if we come to a campus, we want to feel like we belong, you know, and when we see ourselves represented in these different spaces, that feeling of belonging gets kind of nurtured in a way, you know. But also in general, when we're looking for mentorship from folks, like it's important to have people that kind of share similar identity and experiences to be able to serve as mentors to us. Now I know that there's folks across campus that you don't necessarily need to identify with the same, like with a person ethnically, you know, to be able to relate them to them, because you can do so in shared experiences. But it is a different experience when you can, you know, be mentored by somebody that looks like you. So that's definitely a thing. But I'd say with our campuses, I know that there's a bunch of programs in place to support our students of color. And I think that these programs are extremely important as well. But I was a part of these programs. So let me be clear, they were also life-changing for me. But once that first day of school hit in the fall semester, I was like, I feel like I'm in a whole new world. I'm in these cohort programs with people that look like me and have these shared experiences. But the moment that that's done, and I'm back into reality, you know. And I remember having a conversation. It was like my first week of classes, and I called my mom crying, and I'm like, I don't think that this is for me. Like, I just felt like I don't belong, you know. I'm like, I'm just this girl that, you know, is from Lorain, Ohio, like little old me, a Latina. Where's all my people at? You know what I mean? But also, like, I come from a low income background too, so like I just felt so just lost, and I didn't feel like I was in a space where I belonged. And you know, my mom spoke some words of encouragement to me and really poured into me in that moment, and ultimately I stayed, you know, and I graduated 2 times over, and I was able to find my community. But it was difficult. And I think that with being a student and coming from a low income background and wanting to feel that sense of belonging, I felt like sometimes I had to pick and choose. Do I want to feel like I belong in a college campus, or do I want to like pay for my education? So I, as a student, worked like 2 to 3 jobs, which took me away from having the opportunity to really engage in the different student organizations that were available to me, you know? So I feel like I had some missed opportunities there that could have really nurtured me in the ways that I needed as a student.
You know, as you're talking, there's so much to unpack there.
Mm-hmm.
So much, because there's similarities across the board, especially for students that are first gen, students that are people of color, and then students that come from a low income background.
Mm-hmm.
All of those resources that you were talking about is definitely something that becomes a hindrance. And then, like you said, when you have to work to help support yourself, there's just certain things that you just don't have time for,
Yeah.
And it does that whole feeling of belonging sometimes can go to the wayside. My college experience, I think I was able to kind of balance it out a little bit.
Mhm.
And it was definitely because I had found my community,
Mhm.
through the programs and things. And when you start meeting people, you
Yeah.
connect with those individuals. So that definitely helped. But I worked 2 jobs,
Yeah.
sometimes 3 jobs, while I was in college.
Mm.
And getting a chance to just go and hang out like the rest of my friends. I mean, just, and then my major was fashion. And so that was very
Yeah.
demanding, so it was a lot. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's crazy because I was able to find opportunities where I could be with community, but a lot of times, like I said, it wasn't specific to like Latinx identifying students. It would be, students from marginalized backgrounds, underrepresented students. So it'd be a whole mix of us in spaces.
Yeah.
So I participated in these programs, and when I participated in these programs, they were basically I would call them like academic success programs. So they were there to serve a purpose for me. So I participated in the McNair Scholars Program, which was
Yeah.
also life changing for me and a reason why I think I went to grad school. Um, and so I did have an opportunity to participate in these programs, but these programs also helped me in some way, whether it was paying for grad school application fees or giving me a book scholarship. It was giving me something. So
Yeah.
for me, if I was going to take time off of work to do anything, it was going to be to participate in programs that were
Mhm.
going to give me something in return. And most of the time, it
Right.
was something that was going to help me financially.
Right.
Um, but luckily, through those programs, I was able to be around, other students of color, which was helpful. But again, like it wasn't just a predominantly like Latinx space, where I know that we have, student organizations
Mhm.
on campus that exist, and I never got to really interact with them because
Mm.
the focus was elsewhere,
Yeah. Yeah.
priorities overall. So yeah, it was tough.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Where do you feel like universities and colleges can make improvements in educational access that they provide to Hispanic and Latino students?
Yeah, I think,
What are some things that you feel like they can do better?
yeah. So as I mentioned, there's a bunch of really great programs out there that serve communities of color as a whole.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that colleges and universities can, and I say this as, as a person that works within a college
Yeah.
as well, so this
Yeah.
is always on my mind, but like being more intentional about how we engage with our students,
Yeah. Yeah.
specifically for Latinx students,
Yeah.
um, getting to know them. And I mean like really know them, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
What is it that you need? What is it that you're going through? How can I help you academically or, outside of the academics? Um, how can I support you through the process of, you know, like the recruiting process for college, right? And then the enrolling process, and then you actually being a student all the way to graduation. Like, how can
Mhm.
I support you through each of these steps?
Mm.
I think that that's sometimes lost because
Yeah.
when we are thinking about how do we serve our Latinx students, I think we're thinking of it just as an umbrella term, but just within Latinx communities, Hispanic Latinx communities, there is so much diversity, and
Yeah.
we don't all have the same experiences, So I don't have the same experiences as maybe an undocumented student might have, And
Yeah.
there's a whole world of challenges that undocumented students have to face when it comes to just access to higher education as a whole, So I
Yeah.
think that when we're talking about Hispanic Latinx students, it's important to define like who we're talking about, um,
Mm.
and then being able to connect with the students to be able to know how we can intentionally engage them, but also how we can improve if we already have programming, how we can improve the programming that we currently have to meet their
Yeah.
needs. And if the programs aren't meeting their needs, then what can we do to help them? What can we
Yeah.
develop? What can we put in place? But I think that if we're not having these conversations with the students, then we're not really going to be able to know.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
it's important to look at the data, that speaks volumes. But again, that that captures a little bit of stuff. If and things are always evolving. Our students' needs are changing.
Yeah.
2022, students like we're living through a whole pandemic that has impacted students in many different ways.
Yeah,
So like what I
absolutely.
needed as a student may not be what, Latinx students need now. And so
Yeah.
I think the only way to really do that is to have these intentional conversations and really engaging them through the process. Something else that I'm seeing is that there is a lot of amazing programs for supporting the transition and orientation of first year students of
Yeah.
color, so Latinx students, first gen students. There's a lot of amazing programs. I participated in them, but
Yeah.
once the student gets into their second year,
Yep.
it's just like,
It's gone.
what,
Yep.
what
Yep.
do we have available? How are we engaging our second year students all the way through graduation,
Yep.
And that's really, really important to keep them engaged, because as I mentioned to you, once these programs were over and here comes, fall semester, I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
what world do I live in? And I can't be the only person that has experienced that before. So it's important to really connect with these students, to learn more about what their needs are, to really be able to understand them and help them and meet them where they're at with things.
Right.
So that I think is extremely important and something that folks can do.
Yeah. I think about my, experiences as a student, and as you were talking about how the resources are there and then the resources are not there. After you pass through a certain, pass through a certain stage in your educational career.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was so critical for me is that step after graduation, like not knowing what to do. And that's actually the reason why I started my business, First Generation Revolutionaries, is because I want to be able to fill in that gap. Students that are first gen, they just have so many questions. And I remember when it was time for me to start working in the corporate space, like I didn't know anything. Like I didn't know how to do a resume. I barely knew how to do an interview. When I went into the corporate space, I thought I could just go in there as Tameka Ellington from Kids, like I thought I could just go in there like my regular self. But there's so many things that you have to consider, with that. And in regards to how universities and colleges can better support Latinx and Hispanic students, in my opinion, as an educator, one of the things that I always, and I will keep on speaking about until it changes, but just the fact, and you brought it up earlier, just the fact that there is not enough representation of educators, not enough representation of staff to support those students. There's so much research out there about how critical it is that students of color see other people that look like them.
Completely.
It's so important. It's important for the belonging aspect. It's important for the mentorship aspect. I remember, I'm just going to be really honest with you. I remember when I first started teaching at Kent State, I was a brand new faculty and I was looking for a mentor in my department. And I asked some people were recommended to me. And I asked this one woman, she was a great researcher, and I looked up to her and I asked her to be my mentor. And her response to me was, well, I really don't know how to help you. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So we get that all the time. Like the lack of mentorship, the lack of guidance, that is a major part of it. And in universities and colleges, I'm telling you, not only will you get the greatness of it all with having amazing people, coming onto your staff, but your students will love so much to see more people that look like them. Absolutely.
Completely. And, I think that's exactly why I'm doing the work that I'm doing now, because I didn't have that for myself. And I have really amazing mentors of color that have supported me through, my collegiate career. But even still to this day, like I want to find another Latina within higher education to serve as a mentor to me. And it's so like, I just can't, I don't see them. I don't see them, and I know that they exist. I know that there's like employee resource groups that I'm a part of still, but like, it's not there.
Well, let me just say this. One of the ways that I was able to find mentors when I was in the academic space, I was looking for other Black um, professors that
Mm,
can help me navigate this whole, being on tenure track and doing research and
mhm.
all that, right? I
Yeah.
couldn't find that at Kent State in many ways, especially in my field, right? I
Mm,
wanted somebody that was a part of the fashion discipline, a
yeah.
Black woman or Black guy that was a
Mhm,
part of the fashion discipline that could help mentor me through this thing. And so
mhm,
what I ended up doing was every time I would go to a conference, as
mhm,
soon as I saw a person of color, I would go right up to them and I would
mhm,
talk to them, introduce myself, and become to like build these friendships and relationships. And
mhm,
so I had mentors. And there was one of my mentors. Um, her name was Miss Phyllis or Dr. Phyllis. Dr. Phyllis was a professor at Mississippi in
mm,
Mississippi. Okay, Mississippi State. And then another one of my professors, Yolanda, Dr. Yolanda is now the director of fashion program at Iowa State. So
mhm.
you'll get mentors, but they may not be at your school that you're
Yeah.
at. So when the next time when you go to a conference, talk to everyone that that you can see there. That is a person of color, somebody that you can connect with. And if there is a connection, then just talk to them and just continue that communication back and forth with them. And
Yeah.
hopefully organically a relationship will start.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I
Yeah.
definitely agree. And I think that, to your question about, just what can universities do, right? I think that with supporting our students, providing the resources for our faculty and staff that do identify
Absolutely.
as, Latinx or people of color in general,
Yeah.
providing them the financial resources to be able to develop and go to these conferences, to be
Yeah.
able to find their peers,
Yeah.
find the folks that are really going to be there to support them if they're not able to do so here on
Oh
campus. So
yeah.
that's just as equally important, and
Mhm.
yeah, that's yeah.
Wow. Do you have a word of encouragement that our listening educators can use to help them set all students, particularly our Hispanic and Latinx students, on
Mhm.
a road to success? Anything that you might be able to recommend to educators?
Mm. Yeah, I think I spoke a lot about getting to know the students, right? I think the answers are there, but we need
Yeah,
to listen. We
yeah,
need to listen.
yeah.
I don't think that we need to recreate the wheel with certain things. I
Mhm.
really think that the answers are there, but we need to find the time to actually listen to the students and,
Yeah.
if anything, create or develop intentional questions to be able to spark conversations that we're looking to
Mm.
have, to get the students thinking about the things that we need them to be thinking about to be able to better support them.
Yeah, yeah,
I think now being in the field, I see how busy it is, and I see how
yeah,
busy our days can be, and
yeah,
we'll have time set aside to talk to students, but then we're on to the next thing and on to the
yeah.
next thing. And it's like, are we really listening? Are we really
Mm.
taking the time aside to
Wow.
really listen and like take in what the students are saying? Um,
Yeah,
I find myself coming home sometimes from work and just thinking about the conversations that I had throughout the day, right? Just reflecting on it. And then it has me thinking about, other ways that maybe I could have navigated the conversation, or it has me
mhm,
thinking about these really great ideas to go to the next thing, right? But I
yeah,
just think that like I realize actually that I just don't have enough time in my day to really reflect, and that's something that I just want to be more intentional with doing in general, is reflecting on the things that I'm taking in, the
yeah,
conversations that I'm having with faculty and staff across campus, with the students on campus, and just being really intentional with it. So
yeah,
my word of advice or encouragement really is just to listen, because I think that the
mhm.
answers are there. The students know what they want. They're vocal about it, and we
They
being
are.
in the positions that we are in, it's a position of power, and there's
Absolutely.
privilege in that. And we have to use our voices on behalf of the students to create spaces and things that are ultimately going to uplift them and support them and get them from, enrollment all the way through graduation and beyond.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would share.
Yeah, and that's so important. And I think that where that will begin is if educators, be it professors or staff members, if they lead with love.
Yes.
That was something that was always very important to me as an educator, is to allow my students to know how much I loved them and how much I cared about them.
Yeah.
And I think part of my success as an academic came from the fact that, I had such a amazing relationship with my students.
Yeah.
I remember I had one of my colleagues ask me, she was like, well, how do you get the students to do X, Y, and Z? Like, why are they so connected to you? And I was like, well, because I treat them like family. I treat my students like my family. Yeah. And when they're in my class, they feel that, Absolutely. Students know when you don't care.
Oh, for sure.
They know when you're not listening.
For sure.
So absolutely, listening is a big, big part of this stuff. Yes. Absolutely.
Students just want to feel heard. They want to feel valued. They want to feel validated. And you're so right. Like, creating that space for the students to just feel like they can show up as their true, authentic selves,
Yeah.
If, Kent State is a predominantly white institution, and I know what that experience is like, navigating, a PWI as a Latina, so sharing my stories and being vulnerable with my students, I've found that allows and opens up a space for them to share and be vulnerable with me as well. It really fosters that sense of belonging. And yeah, you're absolutely right with it.
So, sweetie, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you wanted to speak about? And I want to know, like, how can people learn more about you? And I'm sure you're on social media, so how can people connect with you in that way?
Yeah. I think one last piece that I will share is, for us to just continue to do the work. Obviously I mentioned talking to the students, but we have to continue to make sure that we're tapping into our resources and looking into this and just staying on top of the current trends that are affecting Latinx students, staying on top of the different laws and policies that are impacting them as well, because sometimes these are things, especially when it comes to like laws and policies, that aren't easy to understand as a student. And if we as professionals can stay on top of these things that are impacting them, we can be able to better help them as well. So I think it's equally as important, if we're having these conversations with students, that we're aware of the different things that are impacting them and have resources available to really be ready to offer in those moments as well.
That's really, really good feedback. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes. And then so that's that. And then you said, how can people stay connected?
Yeah. Like you're on social media. So would you like people to be on social media with you? So
absolutely. Yes. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can probably just type my name in, Ilianna Velez. On LinkedIn, it'll pop up. But I'm also on Facebook. Ilianna Velez is, I think you could just search that as well. Those are the two that I primarily use. So absolutely follow me, connect with me, reach out. We can get connected. Would love to.
Yes. Thank you so much. This was such a pleasure. And I'm just so happy that I got a chance to see you, at least virtually anyway. Right.
I know.
But I will see you on the 30th, because will you be there on the 30th? So for those of us that are Kent State University alumni, this is the event that you're going to want to definitely come to. So Timothy Moore, who was a former professor, one of my mentors, he was also associate dean for the College of the Arts for a number of years. The Student Multicultural Center, where Ilianna works, is going to be named in his honor during homecoming weekend. So on the 30th of September, I don't know if they have a time for it yet. Do you guys have a time for it yet for the event?
I thought it was going to be October 1st that they were doing something for him, but they might also be doing something on the 30th. I was aware of the October 1st date because I know that I can't make that date. But if there's something on the 30th, then I might be able to make that. So I'm going to have to look into it. I was only aware of the 30th though, so I'll have to look into it.
So the 30th, that event actually came from another one of my mentors, Dr. Silas Ashley. He is the president of the Black alumni chapter, and they are
Okay.
there. And he was very, very close friends with Tim Moore.
Yeah.
So he actually on there's something going on the 30th, and he actually asked me to MC that
Okay.
event.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
so
Okay.
there's something. Ask around if you
I
haven't heard
will. I
about it.
will look
Yeah,
into
yeah,
it. Yes, I'm
yeah,
definitely
yeah,
gonna look into it because yeah, this is
yeah.
gonna be super amazing. I'm happy that
Yes,
the news is out. I'm so happy that this is happening. This is a really great way to honor him.
absolutely, absolutely. So I want to wish you well, my dear.
Thank
Peace
you.
on World Peace Day.
Thank you. Yes.
And
Thank you so much.
I love you, and I will see you soon.
Yes, thank you so much. You have a good evening, and I look forward to being able to connect with you in person soon.
Yes,
So you
yes.
take
See
care.
ya.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
I might unmute it. So this is the part of the episode where I talk a little bit about the research that goes into putting these episodes together. I truly believe that as an educator and as a researcher, it's important for me to not only just come on here and talk about different topics, but to back up what I'm saying with a little bit of research. And so I want to talk with you all about what research is saying about the needs of Latinx and Hispanic students. So I was able to find a article that I'm going to be putting on the screen here for you so that you can see the reference. So this is the reference here: challenges and strategies for assisting Latino students with college access and completion. And that's something that Ilianna just talked about, the importance of retention and then graduation or matriculation. So Nicole Lincoln, she was an author, and she wrote for the Independent Educational Consultants Association, and wrote this amazing article that talked about 6 different elements that Latino and Hispanic students are facing. And a lot of these are things that Ilianna talked about. So being first generation, just like the majority of first generation students that are Latinx, Hispanic students, they can't really rely on their family for information or assistance because they're the first people doing this thing called college, and they don't have a lot of resources. The second thing that she mentioned is being from a low socioeconomic status family, which is another thing that Ilianna talked about. According to the article, about 44% of Latin parents don't know anything about applying for financial aid and don't know about the Pell Grant. And so that's really important, and that can be a barrier. She also talked about the financial barriers. And so it's really important that our parents are educated. Of course, number 3 is the language barrier. Sometimes there's a huge language barrier, especially amongst the parents. And if they're trying to talk to administrators and educators at a university or college campus, there could be huge barriers in language. Number 4, being perceived as academically inferior. And I'm just going to pause on this one for a minute because I had a episode that I did a few weeks ago where I was talking about how educators have a lot of control. Educators have more control than they think. And actually, when I went to Akron Public Schools a few weeks ago, I did a professional development training for them. And I spoke to them about the fact that they have this control, and they have the capabilities to either mold and enhance the mind of our students, or they have the capability to tear down the mind of our students. And there's something called the self-fulfilling prophecy. If you haven't heard of it before, there's a researcher, he was an old sociologist, Robert Morton, who came out with this theory. And basically the self-fulfilling theory is, and I'm just going to break it down to you really easy so that you can understand. So teachers' bad thoughts about students will then lead to students believing that they are bad, and then the student behaving badly as a result, which then would prove the teacher correct, that the student is bad. So students have a responsibility to know and to be able to decipher if someone is talking badly about you. How can you go about overcoming those things? Because as we know, it happens, especially it happens to students of color. when we are perceived as being inferior in intellect. The fifth one was lacking guidance from role models and mentors. And that's exactly what Ilianna was talking about the fact that she had a difficult time finding mentors and guidance for being able to navigate through the academic space. And then the final one is being constrained by family pressures. Hispanic and Latinx families, as Ilianna mentioned, sometimes are very strict, and those parents fear losing their children, as well as they may want their kids to work and support the family. And a student might have to do all of that while trying to go to college. And so it becomes quite difficult. And so these are just some of the things that universities and colleges are dealing with when it comes to our students, and ways in which that they need to, rethink, as Ilianna mentioned, the importance of listening to the students. Rethink how you interact and listen to what the needs are of the students. And that will hopefully, result in a better educational access experience for our students. And so this particular episode was brought to you by Your Superpower Workbook. Your Superpower Workbook is my new book. It is on Amazon now. And if you have if you are someone who's read my book, Make for Your Superpower, you will love Your Superpower Workbook. This book is about taking the reader through some of these tough exercises that will really help you to rethink some things in your life, to help you put some things in perspective. And my goal with this book is, once you are done, that you are ready to step into your life as this new superpowered person that is on fire, somebody that is ready to take on their personal, their professional goals, and just rock that. And so this book is now on Amazon, and you can go and pick it up. But I would like to just thank you all for listening. It's always such a pleasure. And as I said, this is episode number 12. I am so excited that I got through episode number 12. I'm just so excited that I started. And let me just say this. If you have any kind of goal in your life, no matter what that goal might be, the first step is just to start. I waited a whole year to do this podcast. I resisted and I resisted and I resisted. I'm so happy that I finally stepped into what it was. And I love this. I love connecting with people, and I love this environment to be able to connect with amazing people that are helping students. And I don't know why I didn't do it earlier. So if you have a goal, just get started. And so if you loved this episode, please like it on YouTube, make a comment on Facebook or LinkedIn, and talk about this to your circle of friends that might benefit from these topics. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already subscribed. Together, we can change the trajectory of equitable education for underrepresented students. And always remember, let's empower and educate, because there's no success without student access. Peace on World Peace Day. Peace, everyone. Have a good night.